My name is Zoe Benfield and I'm the lead IQA for Business Administrator. This is a webinar for Steps to Success. Please be aware that this webinar will be recorded. So today we're going to be looking at Steps to Success for Business Administrator Level 3. How you can prepare your apprentice, what you can be doing to support them, and what can be put in place to make sure that the apprentice has full opportunity to achieve. This includes resources that can be used as well. So to start off with, we're going to be looking at good practice. So first of all, we're going to look at the multiple choice test. Now we have a knowledge base on ACE 360. On the left-hand side of ACE 360, there is a blue menu bar, and at the bottom of that, there is what looks like a magnifying glass on a sheet of paper. If you click on that magnifying glass and select the Business Administrator Endpoint Assessment, you'll be able to find all the information you require. This includes a specification, the additional resources, as well as tools that you can use with the apprentice, including practice papers for the multiple choice test, so they can get an idea of how it might be worded and the sort of questions that they may be asked in preparation for their multiple choice test. Good practice also involves ensuring the apprentice knows exactly the date, time, and place of the assessment. This allows them to prepare and know that when their exam takes place, to ensure that they have done that preparation and are ready for that time and date. The place should be quiet, it is exam conditions, and an invigilator will be in place. There is more information on paper-based invigilation and online invigilation on the knowledge base on ACE and can be requested if required. So moving on to the portfolio interviews. One of the key things is having clearly mapped evidence. And the majority of the apprentices that achieve have a mapping grid, and we actively encourage that, and it can be used as part of their endpoint assessment and uploaded as part of their portfolio evidence. There is a template for this on the knowledge base, and it also states on there the sort of evidence that may be used to achieve grade criteria throughout. They can use this mapping grid, print it out so they have it, and link it to the evidence that they have. Another good point is using evidence that can be used holistically. So a good witness testimony or a good observation that may cover many of the grade criteria. So rather than having many pieces of evidence, they can have more quality evidence that can be used holistically. And the apprentice should know that evidence inside out. They should read it, know where to find those grade criteria, and they can pinpoint that easily. If the apprentice has too many pieces of evidence, it can get confusing and they can get lost looking for their evidence. The portfolio interview is 45 minutes long, and that is finite. We cannot extend after those 45 minutes. Therefore, if they're spending a lot of time finding that evidence, it can lead to not all questions being asked. However, if they know that evidence inside out and they have, say, 15 pieces of evidence that they can use well, and they know that evidence, it should ensure that all the timings are maintained. And if the evidence is clearly labelled against their mapping grid, there should be no problem being able to find it digitally, or if they want to use a hard copy, they can. This also links to recordings and videos. Now, recordings and videos are fantastic evidence, however, they can be time-consuming to use. So if they are going to use recordings or videos, they need to be clearly time-stamped, and the apprentice needs to be able to show that evidence exactly where required when requested. Recordings and videos aren't always the best pieces of evidence for this due to the time restraints that we have. And then the project presentation. So the project presentation, again, good practice is linking the evidence in the PowerPoint to the specification, and the additional resources has a clear outline of what we require. So the PowerPoint slides should be succinct and linked directly to the specification, which will also help limit the number of slides. You only have 15 minutes, the apprentice only has 15 minutes to deliver their project presentation, which means that if they have too many slides, this can mean that they do not get through all their slides. So having Succinct slides linked directly to the specification and avoiding any generic slides is always very useful. The project should be regarding a process improvement, and this should be spoken about throughout, linked to project management tools. So the project presentation must show what project management tools were used throughout that project. And in general, providers and apprentices that use additional resources well and share these with the apprentice achieve higher grades. So the ones that use the mapping grid link the project presentation to specification, and the ones that practice the multiple choice test in general receive higher grades. So themes and trends, so things that could be improved. So for the portfolio interview is when evidence isn't clearly labelled and the apprentice has to make time finding this information and are unsure of what is in there. The work not mapped correctly. So by having 15 documents, for example, if they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way through to 15, it is easy to use. If the documents are labelled in a more complex manner, it can be sometimes confusing for the apprentice, especially if they are not 100% sure of their work. Work-based evidence not being used or used incorrectly. So this includes using generic evidence. So when the apprentice is asked to show a piece of evidence to demonstrate how they have done their job, this should be a specific piece of evidence that they have used to do their job. So this could be an email to prove that they have communicated internally and externally in written format. It shouldn't be a general response without being able to prove that it has occurred. Another example of this is proving and showing how they have maintained health and safety. A generic health and safety document does not show how that apprentice follows health and safety in the workplace. However, an observation or a manager's witness testimony might state how they use health and safety in the workplace. And that is not limited. There are other examples of what could show health and safety. However, a generic document would not be suitable for this. Too much evidence. Again, the apprentice can get confused if there is too much evidence and not be able to find the correct piece. And also this does eat into their time. A good holistic piece of evidence is a lot more valuable than quantity of evidence. Apprentices not understanding the purpose of the evidence. So this sometimes occurs where the apprentice is not sure how that evidence can be used and what it can be used against, which is when it can be very useful to practice a form of interview of the apprentice, asking them the questions about how they communicate and other how they use IT, linked to that specification, and then being able to find that evidence and show that to you. So practice is very, very useful, especially in terms of timings, because timings are tight for business administrator. So they need to be able to answer all questions succinctly, quickly, and get that evidence displayed quickly, knowing exactly what that evidence is showing. For the project presentation, too many slides. If the apprentice turns up with 50 slides, they are not going to be able to get through those 50 slides in that 15-minute timeline. Avoiding generic slides that don't have any links to the specification. There is no purpose for these slides. Each slide should have a purpose linked to the grade criteria. And that goes with slides not relevant to the specification. So a generic slide explaining part of the project that may not include project management tools, stakeholder management, would not be relevant to the specification. And not using additional resources. The additional resources states exactly what the independent endpoint assessor is hoping to see during the presentation, and anything they don't see, they will be questioning, and the apprentice will need to answer those questions. Again, we will ask those questions to try and get sufficient answers. Okay, good. Another piece of good practice is using the notification of results from previous assessments. So the notification of results has multiple purposes. It is the overall result of the assessment. It includes positive and constructive feedback. So the independent endpoint assessor will say what the apprentice has done well. And as a training provider, you can use that positive feedback going forward as good practice to share with your apprentices. The constructive feedback will be areas that may need to be improved for the future. And again, you can use that to improve projects, presentations, and their portfolio interview going forward. We will state on the notification results which criteria were not met, and why. So we will give guidance if a resit is required, and also for upcoming assessments with other apprentices to support the training provider, apprentice, and the workplace. This will also enable the provider to highlight trends, so where their apprentices are succeeding and where their apprentices may be having problems. So if a particular criteria was being missed consistently, you could look into that and work out why the apprentices were not achieving that. And all this enables support and guidance for future assessments. So we're talking about timely assessments now. So if you have any business admin queries, you can contact your business development manager, EPA delivery, or myself. When uploading the documents, ensure they are scanned, dated, and signed correctly. And this includes the portfolio interview and the portfolio for that. So that portfolio needs to have authenticated observations, witness testimonies, and the work product for the interview. The project presentation, the PowerPoint can be uploaded to the shared area, and this needs to be uploaded at least 2 weeks before the assessment takes place. Once an apprentice is ready for assessment, this will go onto ACE 360, and you can either contact your senior centre coordinator or myself so an assessor can be assigned. There will be changes with ACE coming up shortly, where this will be an automated process. The assessor assigned will then check the gateway documents and sign these off. After these are verified, the independent endpoint assessor will make contact with the employer and apprentice to book a date for assessment within 8 weeks of the gateway sign-off. And the results are collated and IQA'd within 5 working days of assessment. In terms of certificates, these are sent out automatically by the ESFA. And in terms of resits, you can request this on ACE after all the documentation has been uploaded. And we can work together to do this. Now, if there were any problems, we have key contacts. So in terms of ACE 360, so if it's software-based or incorrect input that has been made, you would need to contact ACE 360 directly. Appeals are to be sent to EPA delivery, and there's advice and guidance on the appeals process on the knowledge base on ACE. Again, if you go to the left-hand side menu, look towards the bottom, there is a magnifying glass, and in the generic documents, there's information about appeals, paper-based invigilation, and other documentation that is relevant to endpoint assessment. General queries and comments can be asked to myself or EPA delivery, and questions about contracts and payments should be directed to your business development manager. If you have any questions, please contact me on zoe.benfield@pearson.com and I will be happy to answer any of those for you. Thank you very much for your attendance, and I look forward to working with you all in the future.